10 Most Dangerous Volcanoes in the World. Every volcano is unique. Volcanologists must learn each individual's personality and history when they try to help people living nearby. With limited resources, though, how do you choose which volcanoes to study? Here's how. When the United Nations made the 1990s its International Decade of Natural Hazard Reduction, volcanologists decided to focus on 16 volcanoes, 2 each from the US, Japan, and Italy, 1 each from 10 other countries. 10. Mount Merapi, Indonesia. Population, almost 25 million people. Last known eruption, 2019. Much international collaboration has focused on Merapi during the Decade Volcano program. It's one of Indonesia's most active volcanoes and sits in a heavily populated region. Merapi's eruptions are violent, too, with long-lived pyroclastic flows. 9. Nyiragongo, Democratic Republic of the Congo. The population at risk, a little over 9 million people live within 62 miles, 100 kilometers, a million of them are less than 20 miles from the summit. Last known eruption, 2019. This African volcano has a flattish top like Gilras, in South America. Unlike Gilras, Nyiragongo has hosted a series of lava lakes for centuries. That's a deadly hazard because those lakes drain every few decades and the lava is extremely fluid, meaning it can travel long distances, even into the nearby city of Goma. 8. Mount Rainier, USA. The population at risk, almost 3 million people. Last known eruption, 1450 AD. Eruptions during the 1800s have been reported but not confirmed. This world-famous landmark near Seattle, Washington, had its last big blast, a 4 eruption, about 2,200 years ago, but that's not the only hazard. Mount Rainier, which is heavily glaciated, tends to collapse, causing enormous mud flows. This hasn't happened during recorded history. The residents of Armero, Colombia, weren't so fortunate in 1985. While their ice-capped volcano, called Nevado del Ruiz, didn't collapse, its lava melted summit glaciers and sent down a mudflow that engulfed Armero and other communities, killing over 23,000 people. 7. Sakurajima, Japan. The population at risk, 2.6 million people. Last known eruption, 2019. You might not have heard of this volcano, which sits on the same island as Mount Fuji, but farther south. The world-renowned Fuji-san is a dire threat to Tokyo and the subject of intense research. Perhaps the Decade Volcano Selection Committee went with Sakurajima instead because this dangerous volcano isn't as well known. After all, you haven't seen the above happening in Tokyo recently. But that 2013 video shows one of the hazards that citizens of Kagoshima City, less than 5 miles from Sakurajima, often face. Sakurajima volcano used to be an island in Kagoshima Bay until 1914 when one of its explosive eruptions also unleashed lava flows that connected it to the mainland. 6. Santa Maria, Santiaguito, Guatemala. Population at risk, 6,200,000 people. Last eruption, 2019. This is not 2 separate volcanoes, as with Avachinsky and Koryaksky on Kamchatka. Here, Santa Maria is the stratovolcano and Santiaguito is what people call the lava dome complex near the summit. Santiaguito has frequent minor eruptions. Also, the domes sometimes collapse, which causes pyroclastic flows. Larger explosions and mud flows are also possible. Nevertheless, lots of people still enjoy climbing 12,300-foot high Santa Maria so they can look down on an eruption and take silly pictures. That dome complex has existed since 1929 when Santa Maria ended 27 years of violent eruptions that killed over 7,000 people. But Santa Maria/Santiaguito's Decade Volcano status hasn't led to many government-financed projects yet. 5. Santorini, Greece. The population at risk, 67,500. Last known eruption, 1950. Volcanologists are curious about the eruption history that gave Santorini, also known as Thera, its dramatic appearance. They have identified at least 4 caldera-forming events over the last 180,000 years. The most recent, roughly 3,600 years ago, was of 7 eruption. 4. Tide, Canary Islands. Population at risk, 766,000 people. Last known eruption, 1909. Actually, the entire island of Tenerife is a complex of stratovolcanoes that have been active since the Miocene times. Tide is just the highest, and also one of the youngest. Tide sits in 6 by 11 mile wide Las Canadas caldera, and the view from the top is tremendous. Those sulfur-producing fumaroles up there are the only visible sign of current activity. Tide has also had some earthquake swarms but is otherwise quiet. 3. Alaoan, Papua New Guinea. Population at risk, 61,000 people. Last known eruption, 2019. You might not have heard of this island volcano in the South Pacific, but, along with contributions from an equally obscure Russian fire mountain, Alaoan gave you purple sunsets last year. Alaoan is one of Papua New Guinea's most active volcanoes. Its eruptions, though explosive, used to be fairly minor until the 1970s. From that point on, larger blasts became more common, including of 4 eruption in 2000. 2. Unzen, Japan. Population at risk, 7,300,000 people. Last known eruption, 1996. Yes, this is the one that killed volcanologists Harry Glicken, Claudia Kraft, and Morris Kraft, along with 40 other people in 1993. Unzen isn't so much a single volcano as it is a mashup of 3 large stratovolcanoes and several lava domes, taking up most of the Shimabura Peninsula east of Nagasaki. Pyroclastic flows are a major hazard here. And sometimes collapsing material falls into the sea, generating tsunamis like the one in 1792 that accounted for most of the 14,000 plus casualties from Unzen this year. 1. Vesuvius, Italy. The population at risk, more than 6 million people. Last known eruption, 1944. You knew Vesuvius would be on the list, all because of the video above. Yes, that's what a 5 eruption looks like close up. The only typical volcanic hazards not shown in this animation are lava, gas, and tsunamis, though these all claimed victims that day, too. Pyroclastic flows, lava, and gas have killed people and caused massive damage during other Vesuvius eruptions, including the last one in the 1940s. Tsunami-generating landslides into Naples Bay are possible, too. While everyone has been aware of the hazards here for centuries, the issue was first addressed during the Decade Volcano Program. Now, emergency plans based on the Pompeii eruption and another powerful eruption in 1631 are in place.